I've spent the last 10 years pushing the limits while identifying trends and patterns in my type 1 diabetes management. Follow along as I learn, apply, and share the fitness, nutrition, and lifestyle strategies that I've learned from diabetes experts around the world. The real question is, how can we live fearlessly with diabetes while maintaining stable blood sugars? This podcast is here to give you the answer. My name is Matt Vandevecht, head coach and co-founder of FTF Warrior, and welcome to Part of My Pancreas.
What is going on, my Part of My Pancreas listeners? We have a special guest, someone who knows me all too well, a little bit too well, honestly. Special guest is my sister, Carlin. She's a type 1 diabetic and an ICU nurse and a traveler and a hero. Let's be real. Carlin, thank you so much for coming on the show today.
Thanks for having me, brother.
I was contemplating like just playing it off and not telling anyone that you're my sister and just seeing if anyone figured it out. But I'm pretty sure everyone knows. I've posted about you like 5 times already. So
But I think I'm going to talk about you. So
I'm
by
sure
the way.
like, tell us this embarrassing stories from childhood.
Oh gosh.
Got too many. But I'm super excited to finally have you on here. We've been chatting, for everybody listening, we've been chatting about this for months, and it's just never quite worked out. And I'm not sure if it was like timing or Carlin just dipping and not letting it happen.
Maybe stalling. I don't know. It wasn't purposely for the most part. More just like, maybe later. But
A little bit hesitant. I get it. But I want to ask you, since I have this story in my head already, but I want the listeners to know what your diagnosis story is like.
Yeah. So, well, as they may or may not know, you were diagnosed a little over a year before me, but we never really were told that there was a genetic component and that someone else in our family could get it. So that wasn't really on our minds. But in 2012, and like beginning of March, I started having these symptoms. I was super thirsty all the time, peeing all the time, like less than every hour. So a little too much. And it was going on for like a week or so. And I talked to my sister and mom about it. And I'm like, I'm peeing all the time. I'm thirsty all the time. And they kind of wrote it off and just said, oh, it's because you're drinking coffee. Like caffeine makes you pee more. And so instead of coffee, I started having juice in the morning. So that really helps things. And then I decided to just go to like a primary care appointment to get checked out. And I kind of told them like, hey, I think I have diabetes. I actually was learning about it in my anatomy class and was kind of hoping I had diabetes insipidus instead, because you only take an inhalant medicine. But they tested my blood sugar, tested my urine, and were like, you're right, you have diabetes. Your sugar's off the charts. And I remember I was with my mom in the office, and I remember telling her, like I can do this, like Matt's doing it, I can do it. And we were like crying and like overwhelmed, but definitely I had this like, hey, I've seen my brother go through it. Like it's not a death sentence, and it's something that we can get through. So I had an amazing nurse stay overtime to help me learn how to inject. Using an orange, I think, or it was like fake skin, maybe. I went one or the other.
I use an orange too.
Which is, I'm like, is it really similar? I don't know. And then I went home, and Matt, my brother, came home, and we both were crying, and he came over. He wasn't living at home at that time. He was off at college, and he came over, and we were both like crying and like a mess, but like, had this sense of like, you understand, like what just happened to me. And yeah, I never was hospitalized, which is weird thinking back. So I was like, I guess I wasn't in DK, or it was mild enough that I just went home on insulin, and just kind of started the journey from there. So that was a little over 8 years ago. March 23, 2012. Remember that day very clearly. So yeah, that's kind of how it all started.
Man, I forgot what my next question was. I'm like getting emotional reliving.
I know. I was like, I have to stop. I can't tell how many details.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, okay, if I stop listening now, I won't tear up. Okay.
Yeah.
My goodness. Well, I have a surprise for you. that I don't know if you're even aware of, but our mom sent me a picture of us a couple days ago. And do you
Oh.
remember this picture with this note?
Oh, I actually just saw that. Yeah. I had forgotten I wrote that note on it though. It was from like a presentation, I think.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
for everybody listening, I'm going to read this note out loud, if that's okay, Carlin.
I don't remember what it said.
So my mom sent this over to me through text, and I told her, I was like, I'm going to cry. Because, I mean, as Carlin mentioned, it's a very emotional moment, and it was for us. And I mean, let's be real, we weren't like the nicest to each other growing up. That's the best way I can put it. But from the moment of being diagnosed, it was like we connected, we clicked, and it's grown since then. Like we bonded over it to the next level. Anyways, there's a picture from, and this is your graduation, right? From college?
That's my graduation from high school. Yeah.
Oh, is it? Oh, right.
Yeah, but it was at Point Loma also.
It was at the gotcha. That's why
Yeah.
that's confusing. So yeah, at your high school graduation, this picture of Carlin and I, and she has a sticky note attached to it that says, Matt, in this photo, I'm 18 and Matt is 23. We both have diabetes at this point. Him 4 years, me 2. Definitely bonded us and deepened our relationship. He was so supportive of me. I was like, gosh, dang it. Why did you send this, Mom? I'm going to start crying.
Making us emotional.
Yeah. But I think that just speaks volumes to what this disease can really do. And it's not all negative, which, you know, at first it feels like, right? But I started reading this book recently called The Obstacle is the Way by Ryan Holiday. And it goes into how obstacles don't always have to be bad. Obstacles can be an opportunity to a new level, a next level of life, or a new perspective. And seeing this huge obstacle of type 1 diabetes between us is like, wow, this sucks, right? Like, genetic, what? This is dumb. But it brought us closer together. It brought us this community that I didn't know existed for years. It's just incredible. And I think it's truly shown how strong you are. You know, like, nursing alone is hard, but going into it as a type 1 diabetic, having to deal with insulin and sugar, and, you know, while you're saving people's lives, giving CPR and like, am I going low? I think I'm okay. Like, that's nuts. And I think that type 1 diabetes gave you the opportunity to see how truly strong you are. And I think that's amazing.
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think it's something you go through day by day, and it doesn't go away. So it's something you have to either figure out and deal with, but definitely you can figure out the positives with it and connect people, connect with patients, connect with strangers who have the same device as you. So it's cool to look at the positives for sure.
Yeah. But speaking of nursing, I actually wanted to ask you, because you've dealt with something that I've never had to deal with, and that is shifting your sleeping patterns like daily. So for everybody who doesn't know, Carlin is an ICU nurse, and she started out as a night nurse, night shift. Carlin, how did you deal with that? Like, diabetes aside, it's rough, we know, but like shifting your hormone release and different sleeping patterns and dawn phenomenon, who knows if it's going to show up? How did you deal with that?
Yeah, it was a lot of trial and error. My endo definitely helped with tweaking some things, but a lot of it was just on me to see like, oh, I was going low after this meal or high, and let's try adjusting my ratios or my basal. A big help was that I had my insulin pump and Dexcom, definitely from encouragement from Matt, who'd had them for, I don't know how long he had them for, a while, like a year or something at that point.
I'm pretty sure I forced it on you. I was like, you don't understand how amazing this is.
So it was definitely, that was a game changer for me. Because like the whole transition period of being on nights, I made different insulin profiles. I was on way less insulin at nights. And so I would flip-flop when I would switch back from night shift to sleeping during the night again when I had my days off. So it was a lot of just tweaking here and there, having to adjust, you know, having snacks on hand. I always had like glucose tablets in my pocket. Definitely they had juice boxes on the unit, so I used those sometimes. And but having Dexcom super helped. But it was a lot of just trying to have similar meal times too, at breaks if I could. I told my coworkers so they knew that I was diabetic, but I never had any like bad lows working because I had Dexcom to kind of alert me earlier on so I could treat it before getting stuck in a patient room in a bad situation or something.
So that brings up a whole new question. Like, what do you do if you are stuck in a patient room? Let's say like where you need to wear PPE and like keep everything covered. Do you excuse yourself and then try to clean up and change your outfit and then get sugar? Do you have somebody else that's feeding you, or what's the deal there?
I haven't had someone feed me yet. I mean, I just be like, give me 2 socks. But they don't have straws. I was in the hospital, so I'd have to like have them either poke a straw through the hole or like just dump it in my mouth.
I feel like that's how the surgeon would have to do it, just like sipping.
Yeah, I think that's what they do. They have like someone bring them a cup of something.
Yeah.
But no, I can hear the beeping. Like, either if I feel low or I hear the beeping of Dexcom, I keep the alarm setting like a little bit higher, like at least at 70. I think I had 75 at some point, so it would alarm a little sooner than if I was at like 50, because that'd be a little bit too low.
Hold on, you're a little bit higher is 70?
Well, some people do like, I have it still at that, I think, but I had it at 75, I think, or 80 at one point.
And mine's at 80 forever.
Oh. Well, to each their own, I guess.
You're ballsy.
But if I felt low or like heard the alarm, then I would, usually, as long as it's not an emergency situation, I could just take off my gown and gloves and like do some hand sanitizer and grab some tabs or some juice. I haven't had it where I've been like coding someone and been low, thankfully. I had a situation where I thought my patient was getting sicker, so I put a temp rate on when I was like hovering at a certain number and had some insulin on board, and then it worked out fine. I think I've actually gone like a little bit higher during a code situation because of like the adrenaline of it, but I haven't had any like emergency situations where I'm the emergency in an emergency, so that's good, and I hope to keep it that way.
Yeah, let's avoid that. So for everybody listening who doesn't know nursing lingo, what is coding?
Yeah, I always forget to clarify that with some people, and they kind of just give me funny looks.
It's okay, the whole family's in the medical field, so it's not normal for you to have to explain.
Yeah.
But.
So coding is either when someone stops breathing or their heart stops, and we have to do CPR. So we're in a situation where there's nurses and doctors and respiratory therapists in the room, and we're doing CPR, we're giving meds, we're using an ambu bag to bag the patient to give them oxygen. The doctor's potentially intubating the patient, putting a breathing tube in. We're giving them like epinephrine, other drugs to help bring them back. So it's a high stress situation where I might lose the symptoms or not notice the symptoms of a low or high, just because there's a lot going on.
Very true. What, like blood sugars aside, what is that like for you, dealing with someone who's coding?
Surprisingly, it's been okay. I wasn't sure how it would be going into nursing because I've been kind of like a sensitive person. Like when my sister or mom would cry, like I would cry with them. So I'm like, am I going to be this mess if I like see people dying? But I think I've been able to kind of separate a little bit, which feels a little weird to say, but like to focus on like the task of trying to save someone's life and like what I have to do. And also sometimes our patients, we don't know them quite that well yet, or if I'm helping with someone else's patient, I don't have the personal connection. I think it'd be harder if it was a patient I had taken care of for a few days in a row and they were to code. But yeah, I think I've been able to kind of focus on the task at hand. And then like sometimes after, you can like talk with your coworkers about it and be like, hey, how do you feel? But like in the moment, I think we're pretty able to focus on it, which is good.
Yeah, I was telling actually Kirsten about that, which is one of our other sisters who's also a nurse, and our other sister is also a nurse. But Kirsten, she has that kind of a relationship feel with her patients. Mm-hmm. And I'm like, Jude, so for our listeners, most of them know that I was going the firefighter route for a while. And I was like, yeah, I can deal with somebody's arm missing. Like, that's chill. But then I hear Kirsten's stories working in, with cancer patients. I'm like, I don't think I could deal with building a relationship with somebody and watching them deteriorate. That's a whole nother level for me. Yeah. And I think that you're on a similar kind of feel. Is that right?
With what?
Where you're like, yeah, emergency situations, blood, totally fine. Relationships, I'm going to break down and cry.
Yeah. I mean, I had like a patient where I've taken care of her for like the last 2 weeks. So I'm like, if something happened to someone like I knew that well, I think it'd be a little different because like I know I've heard her talk about her family. Like I've actually like spent time just sitting in the room with her. Whereas sometimes there are other patients, like they're sedated and I'm not actually talking to them. And so I don't get to like interact with them on the basis that like say our sister Kirsten does, where she knows them over periods of months to even years sometimes if they're in cancer treatment for a long time.
Yeah, it's super rough. Okay, well, you're on day shift now, right?
I am.
So
Praise the Lord.
that's fantastic, first of all, because you can have a normal life, semi-normal life. It's almost normal because it's still 12-hour shifts, but what was that transition like? Was it all good, or were there some bumpy roads with blood sugars?
There are definitely some bumpy roads with blood sugars because my eating schedule wasn't the same on like a normal day off, because I get up at 5:30 in the morning and eat around 6, and I don't do that on a normal day. So I think kind of combining with eating a meal earlier and during my dawn phenomenon, I definitely had to do some trial and error and tweaking and adjusting because I was spiking high and then adjust and go low. So I finally think I've figured it out mostly for now until the new change comes, where I, increased my basal and then tailored in my bolus ratio. And, but yeah, and then trying to figure out the right time to eat during the day. Eating after work is also something I'm adjusting to because eating at like 8 p.m. or 8:30 before going to bed, then you're leaving with all that insulin on board. So it's still just kind of a learning process, but I feel like I've got the morning and during the day figured out. And I've tried to avoid eating at 8. I try to eat at work before I leave at 6. But yeah, it's just, it's a process. As all diabetics know, it's not, you just figure it out once and you're done. It's lifelong.
Yeah. So with your changing schedules, did you notice, like you said, basal and bolus rates changed? Did you notice when you were night shift that those two different settings you had worked for the most part? Like you had two profiles, right, on your pump?
Yeah, so that I had two majorly different profiles with completely different basal and bolus ratios on it that I would switch back and forth between. And so I did that again for day shift. I wasn't sure if I'd have to, but I have a work one now, and then I think it's labeled Carlin. I don't know why. That's on my other days off. Then I think I still have my night shift one. I think I have a travel one. So lots of different profiles to adjust for whatever may come up. But yeah, definitely I had to tailor in the work profile to figure it out.
Nice. Well, okay, you mentioned travel. Now I want to talk about that because you are one of the few people who is almost as well traveled as I am. I think I'm still in the lead. I'm not sure, but you took off on a number of trips before this whole COVID thing went down, of course. But how was that with diabetes? Obviously, you have to be a little bit more spontaneous and okay with your numbers not being perfect because there's a lot of new factors. But what was traveling like for you with type 1?
It's definitely can feel like a roller coaster sometimes as you're transitioning. And I mean, when I was traveling, I was walking a lot, so lots of exercise, changing your insulin sensitivity, making maybe drop lower. Yeah, like I said, I made a different profile. I kind of kept my like basals a little on the lower side just to make sure I wouldn't go low, and then transition them to like back to similar to normal ones with like a higher dose in the morning with dawn phenomenon. But with time changes, I didn't want to, like I was eating at different times on the plane, and as I transitioned to their new schedule, like if I was going to Europe. And again, it's literally just adjusting all the time, figuring out how to change your ratios. It would usually come back to around the same ratios I would be here, but with more activity, sometimes the basals was a little lower. But definitely kept lots of low snacks on hand, would bring juice boxes, candy, like a whole thing of tablets, tons of supplies, extra supplies. And even though they take up space, they're totally worth it because having a pump that you can, tweak with, and then Dexcom, like that makes traveling as a type 1 like so much easier. Like I didn't travel with either of those, and I was fine. I'm obviously still here. When I traveled, was like 3 years ago with my friend backpacking through Europe, and just having them this time when I traveled alone in September, October, I definitely feel like that also gave my mom and probably Matt and other people more peace of mind. And they'd text me if I was low and could check up on me.
I was about to bring that up. I was like, do you remember when you were in Spain and I texted you and I was like, it's 3 a.m. her time and she's in like the 40s. I'm like, wake up. And you're like, it's fine. It was a sensor thing. I'm like, oh, you're going to kill me.
Giving everyone heart attacks. I'm sorry.
I was so stressed out because it was like middle of the night for you. I was like, she's not awake. What if she's dying? And I'm like, worst case scenario, I get in my head, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, no, Dexcom is a huge thing. The only thing that I've run into with travel is while Dexcom and a pump are amazing for keeping your blood sugar stable, you really have to plan ahead to have so much supplies. Like, I mean, you can talk about how you pack because you backpacked the majority of times that you traveled. You're not this prissy girl who's going to bring 3 suitcases. You pack it into a carry-on. Like, you don't check anything. That's impressive. As a diabetic, that's unheard of. So tell me how you packed. Was it like half diabetes stuff and then like the same outfit every day? I mean, don't be ashamed. Okay.
I definitely had to like be like, okay, what clothes can I pair? Like this shirt can go with these shorts and this skirt, like vice versa. I hand washed things like bras and underwears in the sink. And I think at the end, some of the clothes were a little not as nice smelling. I'd hand wash some things if I need to. But as for getting my backpack on the plane, I also had some nice people where my size was like kind of on the edge, and they're like, "Oh, we can check it for free," and I like just so in case it doesn't fit up there. And I was like, "Oh, but I have medical supplies. Like, I don't want to check it, and I don't want to deal with losing a bag that has all my medical stuff in it." And so they were nice and were like, "We'll just look the other way when you come on the plane." And so I was able to bring my backpack. But yeah, the pump and Dexcom supplies take up a lot of space. You just kind of have to shove it in there. But yeah, I think it helps when I've traveled before with a backpack. I didn't have as many supplies though. But you kind of have to just be like, well, do you really need to bring this? Like, I'd like to, but will I wear it more than once is kind of the question sometimes too.
Yeah.
Getting creative with outfits as well. For
sure. So a number of years ago, my best friend and I went on this crazy trip where we tried to fit in 7 countries in 7 days because we figured out it was super cheap if you just kept moving. And we were trying to like sleep on trains and stuff to avoid paying for Airbnbs. It was a budget trip. It's cool. We took the cheapest flights, which meant the smallest carry-ons. And thankfully I was MDI back then, but same strategy right there. I mean, I wasn't as responsible either. So I'm pretty sure I reused like pen needles and stuff, but I think I had like 2 outfits for a whole week, and I would literally wash it in the sink whenever we stayed at a hostel. And that's kind of how you have to do it if you want to try and backpack. You gotta get creative.
Yeah. How much do you want to travel and save money?
I know. Yeah. The goal is to eventually have enough money to just pay for checked luggage and a nice hotel and all of the trimmings. But yeah, it's fun to have those memories, and I'm obviously grateful that you're here and you survived not being as informed, I guess is the way of putting it, with your blood sugars, because I've been there as well. And you know, scary moments aside, you still have fun, you still survive, and we're here today. But yeah, I wanted to cover your whole nursing story, which is super cool. I'm glad that we got to cover that. Travel, I wasn't planning on that one, but do you know how many countries you've been to?
Not off the top of my head, but like definitely over 10, I could say, but I can't really think of it. I mean, recently it was just Spain and Portugal. What do we count if I stopped in the airport in China when I went to Thailand?
Well, you have to step out of the airport, and I say that because I've been in places like Russia where I planned on stepping out, and they're like, no visa, no enter, and I'm like, no. So if you stepped out of the airport, then you count it.
Oh, okay. But yeah, I don't know if I know off the top of my head. I'd probably forget some. But recently it was Spain, Portugal. Before that, Thailand. I guess we count Mexico and Canada and US.
Oh yeah, well, US, I don't know.
All of Europe. I went to lots of Europe. France, Germany, Austria, Netherlands, Italy, Switzerland. I'm forgetting other ones. I don't know. I can't remember now.
Amazing. All over the place. For anybody who doesn't know, Carlin and I actually had the chance to meet up in Italy because my wife and I are staying out there long term or short, medium term. I don't even know. But yeah, my sister Carlin happened to be there on her own backpacking trip. And then our parents happened to be there like the next week. And so it was ridiculous seeing like our whole family in Europe.
That was awesome. That was in Cinque Terre, which is one of my favorite places too. So that was awesome.
That's probably the only place I would go back to in Italy. That's worth going back to multiple times.
Yeah.
It's absolutely incredible. And yeah, jumping off like the 30-foot rock with you. That was incredible. Anyways, yeah, Carlin she's got quite the story. It's definitely not let diabetes hold her back, which is incredible. Again, for those who know my story, I had a bit of a mental shift. I had some panic attacks and anxiety that I had to deal with. And during that time, Carlin, I'm just talking to you because it's more fun. Carlin, you were an inspiration to me. And I freaked out for a while. I hated my diabetes for a number of years. And watching you just take life and do what you will, still enjoy it, still find adventure, be spontaneous, take the hits and just keep running was an absolutely inspiring moment of me to realize, hey, if my little sister can do this, come on, Matt. You need to buck up and go for it. So thank you, Carlin, for being an inspiration to me and to so many others. I know that you don't boast about any of the accomplishments that you've made. You don't talk about the hard times, but you've pushed through a lot and you've accomplished a lot. And I want to acknowledge you for that.
Thanks, Matt. I really appreciate that. And I definitely can say we've gone back and forth encouraging and inspiring each other. It definitely helps to have a diabetic who's also a sibling and can either encourage you when you really need it or also be like, hey, what you doing? And you've definitely been an example for me. You're on it with all your carb counting and measuring. And sometimes I'm more of I really want this random takeout Thai food. But we can kind of balance each other out and still live good lives, which is awesome. For
sure. Yeah, there was a period of time where I was kind of the diabetes police to you, and I'm sorry.
You can check in once in a while.
It was like when I regained my passion for numbers and figuring it all out. I was like, Carlin, you didn't measure that food. You need to stop guessing and figure it out. And you're like, Matt, it's fine.
Yeah, mostly because the freedom of Dexcom pump kind of gives you some confidence sometimes, and I'm like, I'll figure it out later. I mean, I got snacks if I'm low. I'll go for a walk if I'm high. I just really want Thai food.
For sure. Yeah, no, Dexcom and the pump tandem have been a game changer. Probably shouldn't tell Tandem about how you mess with the settings and you're like 250% basal.
Oh. I know. I'm like, probably better that I don't have access to just the basal IQ anymore, that I can't do temp rates.
I know. I thought about that. Like, I'll be going high. I'm like, I should just fake bullets. I'm like, wait, that throws off the algorithm though. Crap. It's like, what do I do?
Yeah. Run outside.
I know. Well, I wanted to thank you for jumping on today. I know that you're a busy bee, being a nurse and living an as normal as a life as you can at this stay-at-home order time period. But I wanted to ask you for any kind of golden nugget that you've got for our audience, something that you've learned, whether it's through your own diabetes management, something you learned in nursing school, or I don't know, just something fun that you'd like to share with everybody.
Well, kind of like I had said, it's all about trial and error and tweaks. I know I can get frustrated sometimes when I have these unexplained highs or lows. But it really comes down to, like, your body, your activities and what food you've been eating. And it's about taking it day by day with adjustments, not giving up and just giving into having crappy numbers, letting yourself have them sometimes because you need a break, but like not being too hard on yourself, but also taking the time to be like, okay, I can just increase my basal by a little bit, see what happens tomorrow. Or I can go up by 1 on my ratio or down by 1. And like that's what I've been having to do with nursing, traveling, night shift, day shift, different eating schedules. and that's been really helpful. Oh, and one other random thing, it's kind of related to travel. I just learned this, that TSA will not pat you down and go through all of your stuff if your juice boxes are clear, because they can put them in the machine to like make sure nothing bad is in them. But if you have like a Capri Sun that has foil on one side or like a cardboard box one, they have to like go through your luggage and tear everything apart and pat you down. But yeah, a TSA agent told me that the last time I traveled, and so I need to find some cleared.
Yeah, like what does it have to be clear all the way around or just the back?
Yeah, I guess like Welch's has like she said like clear, like kind of like in like little Gatorade bottles, like something like that. Like think of a little Gatorade bottle, like something clear like that, because then they can put it through their scanner and they use like light to look through it. I don't know the science behind it, but I was like, I need to find those because it's so annoying. I've had so many annoying airport stories of people like not letting me keep my juice boxes, or like patting me down for like 5 minutes, or waiting for someone to screen me. And that might help somebody, and hopefully it does.
For sure. Yeah, there's a lot of fun hacks too. I recently found out that you can pretty much take any food item on the planet you want if you're like, oh, it's my diabetes meal.
Better. Diabetes.
No, I got like a yogurt and a PB&J and a couple other things that are like liquid or gel. And I was like, diabetes? And they're like, oh, okay, cool. Yeah, go ahead. And I was like, what?
Yeah, you also have some people who are like, oh yeah, diabetic, like just pass on through. And I'm like, oh, thank you.
What's cool too is that they're getting more familiar with our tech. Like we were coming back from Hawaii last year, and I was like, oh, this is a thing. It's my G6, right? Like my Dexcom. I was like, oh, it measures my blood sugar. And she was like, oh, Dexcom. And I was like, what? I was like, are you diabetic? And she was like, no, we just see a lot of them these days.
Yeah, they just know.
What? This is so cool. So yeah, I think that as time goes on, well, if the world gates ever open up again for travel, that it's becoming more of a norm because people are wearing it. They're not hiding their diabetes, which is super cool. So
I love it.
Yeah, it should be getting a little easier, hopefully, and less of a battle getting through TSA.
That's the hope. It's definitely nice to be able to see a lot more people becoming more informed and educated and understanding of our disease and gadgets we have.
100%. Well, Carlin, I want to thank you again so much for coming on today. One quick question, though, because we know that you are, like, you're trying not to, but you are becoming a diabetic influencer. Like, it's just happening. I can't stop it. And so I want to know where people can find you on social media.
Mine's very simple. It's just my name with the 2 letters of my last name. I need to come up with a better username if I'm going to be an influencer, I guess.
You're fine. You're good. Rob is just Rob Howe. Like, it's literally his name.
Cool.
What's his number at the end?
Famous, so I'll be fine.
There you go.
Yeah.
So what is the Instagram handle for you?
So it's Carlin VV. It's KarlynVV, and that's it.
Double V.
Yes, double V for the last name.
Love it. Well, again, thank you so much, Carlin. It was a pleasure making an episode, but it's also an excuse for me to hang out with you. I love you, and you're the only podcast guest that I've ever been able to say that I love you. So there's that.
I love you too.
So everybody go check out Carlin, my little sister, the diabetic hero, my bestie, at Carlin VV on Instagram. And go check out other episodes. Go subscribe, check them out, and keep up the fight.